all you Gretas and Chutezcats out there. Welcome to Unit 5, Section 3 notes. We're going to look at the Green Revolution and GMOs. So here we go. And we'll move me up here. Industrialized agriculture. This is how the majority of the United States gets their food. This is the bad kind. So it's mainly mechanized. It's all machines that do everything and very standardized, applied to food production. So they took the factory model and applied it industry and applied it to farming. So it's machines doing everything. Massively subsidized by, massively had the energy side of things subsidized. So fossil fuel energy and human energy input per calorie of food produced. So Michael Pollan's book, Omnivore's Dilemma, which I have, if somebody wants to borrow, really good read. In the US, we put in 10 calories of energy for every 1 calorie you're actually consuming. So most of this is due to fossil fuel use. It's used to make the fertilizers and pesticides and transport them, the tractors, any other machinery, irrigation, transportation of the food. So this is why if you're purchasing like locally bought food that's organically grown at smaller farms, you're not supporting this as much. So this I thought was very interesting. Why does the salad cost more than a Big Mac? And it all comes down to federal subsidies. So subsidies are money that the government gives to different places or people or companies to help subsidize, to help cover the cost of what's being made. So most of the federal subsidies are going to the meat and the dairy industry. And a lot of that is happening in the form of corn. A little bit is in grains. Then you have your sugar, oil, starch, alcohol, nuts and legumes, and then fruits and vegetables has a very, very small part. Now, if you look at what they recommend we eat, we should be eating more grains, and then fruits and vegetables, and a little bit of protein, and a teeny tiny bit of sugar, oil, and salt. But you can see where the money is going. And this is the lobbyists for the meat and the dairy industry donate a lot of money to certain politicians who then pass the laws to get the subsidies to them. This is one of the reasons that our food system is as screwed up as it is. So the Green Revolution is not green like environmentally friendly. It was named that before green came to mean like eco-friendly. It's the opposite of eco-friendly. I would think of this like industrialized farming. So this is once again bad. So it was the shift to mechanization, fertilization, irrigation, and improved crop varieties over the last 100 years. So that sounds all nice and warm and fuzzy, but we're using too much energy and creating too much pollution and using way too many poisons on our crops instead of just growing it the way we have done in the past. So there's an ed puzzle you guys will do that'll be on Canvas. So looking at the mechanization, I don't put myself up there. So we're looking at economies of scale. And obviously the average cost of production falls as your output increases. That large upfront expenditure is justified by profits from that increased production. But you got to put a lot of money in the first place. So these small farms can't expend that upfront cost. And so a lot of smaller farmers are getting shut down. And the farmers that are remaining are getting bigger and bigger and bigger because the bigger you get, the more money you make. Look at that, not a person other than the drivers. So the average farm size has definitely increased from about 150 acres to about 500 acres over 100-ish years. That's kind of crazy. But only here. If you look at East Asia, so a hectare is about 2.5 acres. In Asia, your mean size for a farm is about 1 hectare. And most of that country, most of East Asia is 80% is less than 2 hectares. So most of the country uses small farms. Here in the United States, once again, we looked at that 500. So 2.5 times this in acres. And only 4% of the farms in the United States are those 2 hectares or less. So it's a very small farm. Then we have monocropping. Mono 1, large planting of a single species or variety. And this is what you see here in Indiana. When you go past the farms, you see corn, or you see soy, or you see corn, or you see soy. That's about all you're going to see here in Indiana. Benefits, very efficient and productive. It's very economical. It's very cheap to just plant one thing a whole lot of times. Treat it with all the same stuff because it's all the same thing. However, there's a lot more soil erosion because you're not having that different things working. Higher vulnerability to pests. There's loss of genetic diversity and a lack of predators of the things that are eating the plants. So a lot of drawbacks to this. So think about your average like backyard garden that maybe has 5, 10, 15 different kinds of plants. That's much better for everything than the monocropping. And then if you look at the genetic diversity even among these things. So in 1903, commercial seed houses offered hundreds of varieties in these 10 things. So beets, cabbage, corn, 307 different kinds of corn. How many kinds of corn do you guys know of today? Like one, maybe two. There's one main form that people eat, and there's one main form that animals eat, and that's about it. 408 kinds of tomatoes. I could name like 5. That's so cool. And then 80 years later, many, many fewer were found in the same place. So by reducing the genetic variety of these things, we're really changing the ability of these things to survive into the future. Because if it's all the same, it takes one virus, one predator to wipe out a whole thing. You have survived this round of notes. Before I leave, I want to let each and every one of you know that you are good enough, you are smart enough, and people do like you. And in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good God, do your homework.